So, what is insecure authorization? So, what is actually uh, is the result of a poor privilege management within an application that allows users to perform actions that they are not allowed to. So, which means like every application has a unique authentication mechanism, and if there are insecure authentication, that means automatically insecure authorization is also enabled. So in the sense, insecure authorization enables users to get into system that they're not able to. But when we talk about insecure authorizations, that it gives privileges to verified users who should authorize not to have them, which means that the roles that the users are assigned to varies within the applications from levels to level. Like we can talk about horizontal privileges or vertical privileges. So let's consider an example where let's consider an example of a e-commerce application, right? So in the e-commerce application, as we talked about, this application might be having basic authorization model wherein all the users may be having same level of access. So there is no role-based access control. Uh, they are all having the same level of access upon authentication. Now, after observing this behavior of the application, an attacker uh, after the attacker might explore the application and identifies that all the users have same level of access post authentication. So what the attacker will do is they will try to modify the account details, try to view the information. Suppose we store credit card details in our commercial applications, they might able to gain those details, and they might try to modify the addresses and all. So with this knowledge, they can target specific users for more sophisticated attacks. So this might lead to uh, authorization flow. Obviously, the attacker can change account details, manipulate shipping addresses, and even change the mode of payment. And this is all because of lack of proper authorization control in place. Right? Suppose in the e-commerce app, there is a particular parameter, let's say, of a user ID. Now, when the application is referring to user ID one, then the particular user named Jacob is able to access its applications, related data or order history, and do all the stuffs. Now, if the username is somewhat modified to 3 or 5, then another user with the name Sham can able to uh, the user or the attacker can able to gain the access of that particular user Sham by just modifying the value on the user ID. So this is actually, if we talk about, this is a vulnerability related to insecure direct object reference, we can say, which may certainly leads to insecure authorization. And there are also ways that you can also take over the account by bypassing the privileges. Suppose in the application there might be a parameter called role name or role ID. By changing the values, you might be able to gain a high level of access from a low level access. So this is again the uh, locations where you can certainly look for it. By the method you can easily bypass. Uh, Now there are many vulnerabilities uh, leading to certain authorization checks. So always we have to design the application so that the user should pass the roles in the backend as part of the system request. Now there are certain risks associated with insecure authorization when like from a security standpoint, insider threats can significantly benefit from an authorization vulnerabilities. It can also lead to scenarios where an overprivileged user unintentionally execute actions that can lead to loss of sensitive data. From a business standpoint, they could be looking at irreversible reputational damage. Unauthorized access to sensitive user data can also give away identity theft and fraud, and it may leave you open to potentially expensive suits. Now, how to prevent? If we talk about the prevention mechanism, so you can avoid designing the mobile application in a manner where information about an authenticated user roles or permissions come from mobile application itself. Application should be designed to store all user role and permission information in the backend, and an authenticated user permission should be verified with the same. Now, all incoming identifiers associated with this operation should be independently verified with the roles and permission stored in the background. So this actually demands an extra attention from mobile application developers during the development phase of application. The implementation nowadays gets complicated within the mobile application. So still the penetration testing software can detect this authorization vulnerability, and so in order to check all these areas, we should address all the parameters where the roles are getting passed, IDs are being passed, or if there are any uh, related information like an API. When a user makes an endpoint API request to the backend REST API, it might contain something called actor ID or OAuth bearer token. So we should always look for this kind of tokens. So it should uh, so the application is designed so the backend verifies only the bearer token, not the associated actor ID. So here the issue may arise. So always we should verify a two-way process. We should identify the user information using multiple API requests to avoid such authorization vulnerability. Okay, so for insecure authorization, uh, let's look at an example. Let me go back. So there is a section called access control issues part 1. So here it is talking about the objective is to access, you are able to access the API credentials when you click the button. Now try to access the API credentials from outside the app. Hint, components of an app can be accessed from other apps or users if they are not properly protected. Components such as activity services, content providers are prone to this. So if we look at, if we click the button here, view API credentials, we are able to see the vendor API credentials, 123 secret API key, 123 the username and the password. But here, as the application says, that we have to access this credentials from outside the app. So we can do this via IDB. So in order to do this, we have to check the code as in what activity is getting called. So in order to check, let me go to ZX. ZX GUI is the ZX GUI. Okay. Let me open ZX GUI and I'll show you the activity, and then we'll call that activity. Let me open a file, DIVA with the file. So the APK file is now opened. As you can see, the access control issues part 1. So here is the access control 1 activity. So this activity talks about the view API credentials and section on create bundle. Okay, view API credentials, start activity. So here, as you can see here, as soon as it talks about the uh, activity, so it talks about on create activity, and action is to see view the credentials. This is on create bundle, and here view credentials, view set action. Here is action is set. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll run the logcat. So from here, let me go to the directory back. Now here I'll run the logcat to observe the logs. Now here in the application, I'll type in view API credentials. As soon as I perform this activity, I'll see the task. Okay, So here, as you can see, it is displayed API create activity, but we timestamp should be here. Okay. So as you can see here, the start activities, as you can see here, start activity is zakarasim.diva.action view creds. So this is the activity that it started. So what we will do is you will start this activity from our uh, ADB console. So let's go to our ADB console. Let me open another command prompt. ADB console, sorry, ADB cell. Now I got this. Now what I'll do is I'll start the activity ADB. So we can start from here also, but let me go back to a CLS. ADB shall start, we shall am start hyphen n zaker.asim.diva slash dot API creds activity. So this is the activity name as we saw here. Start Zaker is in CMP Zaker Asim Diva slash API creds activity. So this is the one that I'm going to start, and you would see, so the application itself will launch the credentials. So let me go back. Once I go back, this is the one, as you can see, access control issues. If I come here and if I hit enter, okay, Asim.diva, it says some error with this content. So let me check again. Something wrong with the activity name, I believe. So as you can see, I just typed in ADB shell aim start hyphen n lakarasimdiva.api creds activity. So took it from the logcat that we run from here. So I took the activity name, and then just a minute. So yeah, this is the activity that I took. And when I hit enter, you'd see that the API credentials would be visible. So as soon as I started, as you can see, starting intent, and the application is displaying the data. So this is how we, without getting into the application, we can uh, take the credentials from the outside of the applications. So when there is no protection, so these credentials are not properly protected, which is why we took it from our ADB shell command line, and we can retrieve the data. So this is how the flaw in the protection mechanism is.